Hey, this is the Suplex Cyclone, Curt Gannon, and this is Drinking at Mo's podcast. Make sure you listen, subscribe, and don't forget, suplex the world.
All right, everybody. Welcome, Drinking Mo's. Big Mo here. YouTube, as always, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good shit because it helps out with that pain in the ass algorithm. We're in most places you can find your podcast. And yes, I know I've been told at recent wrestling shows, joking about my language, but do I give a shit? No. But today I'm excited to have with me the Suplex Cyclone himself, Curt Gannon. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. How you doing?
Oh, I can't complain. I've got some good interviews lined up. Got some stuff coming up. Warrior Wrestling, who I'm good friends with pretty much most of the crew in that promotion, they're getting started back up again. I got an interview with a member of the NOI family, so I'm like, all right, June's shaping up to be a good one.
Nice. Yeah. I've been catching Warrior Wrestling that they're getting their stuff going again.
Oh yeah, they got what? Very end of June, Friday Night Lights. Gonna get that Stadium Series thing they had going back up and running. I actually got invited out to. Just realized it was just a little over a year ago now that I was invited out to their St. Louis stop. So that was fun. That was a good time.
Nice.
But first thing I like to start off with everybody with, it's mostly first timers since repeaters, I've already done this. What got you started as a fan, and then what got you started, deciding to finally make the leap into the business?
So I got into wrestling when I was a kid. I caught it here and there when I was younger. Just kind of flipping through the channels, but I got really hooked into it probably about 9 years old, and it was around the time when WCW was really taking off, when the NWO was going. Really got hooked because of Sting, which is a funny little story. My brother actually was the one that told me about how Sting was doing the Crow gimmick, and I was a huge Crow fan as a kid.
Okay.
And still am. And but anyways, he's like, hey, he's doing this Crow character, you should check it out. So I got on, watched it, and as soon as I watched it, I was hooked. And didn't take very long after that, I knew I wanted to be a pro wrestler. So fast forward a few years, I got introduced to a friend of mine that actually ended up introducing me to somebody else that was an indie worker in the Kansas City area. Started learning some stuff from him, trained with him for a few years. And they actually run Extreme Wrestling Center out in Raytown, Missouri now. But was with them for a little bit. And I kind of got to the point where I'm like, well, I feel like I've hit my peak here. I need to learn more, which is kind of just, a big part of wrestling.
Yeah.
So Trevor Murdoch opened a school out in Lenexa, Kansas. So I started training with Trevor, snowballed from there after Trevor ended up closing his school, which just, for personal family issues. Because Trevor was driving from Lake of the Ozarks all the way out to Lenexa, Kansas.
Yeah.
After that closed, I got with Derek Stone, who was Harley Race's original head trainer outside of him. Derek trained Trevor, but that was kind of my little trip into getting really into the business was, taking all those steps and training with all those guys.
That's a pretty cool story. I love origin stories of how people got in. And funny thing you brought up the Crow and knowing the star of the movie, Brandon Lee. I'm a huge fan of his father's. Like
Yeah.
the ESPN 30 for 30. I got it saved, and I'm like, I watch it periodically. I Enter the Dragon's still one of my favorite movies ever. Most people wouldn't realize that about me, but it's funny for me though, because I just remembered not that long ago. Uh, I don't think he had won the Ring of Honor Pure title yet, but when one of Shibata's first matches in Ring of Honor under the Tony Khan umbrella, they mentioned the thing that kind of had him out of wrestling for a while. And I got to thinking, I'm like, holy crap, no, let me look that up. And yeah, it was literally the thing that killed Bruce Lee. And now he's out there. He's a Ring of Honor Pure champion. And
Yep.
It's some amazing stuff when I got to looking into and remembering that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's I mean that's a huge deal that he was able to come back from that. And yeah, and also I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan as well. I have a background in martial arts, and so I feel like to be a martial artist, like it's kind of like a given that Bruce Lee has to be kind of an idol. So
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I have a little bit of a background in martial arts. I didn't get all the way up to black belt in Taekwondo, but the school I was in shut down right as I was getting to about blue belt. And then it was like an hour or more at the time when I was growing up to the nearest school. And it was just like, I can't, we couldn't afford it at the time. So it was
yep.
like, oh, all right. But, in kind of my little introduction, mentioned the Suplex Cyclone. How did that come about? Because in ring stuff, we kind of went over a little bit of origin stories on how you got into wrestling, and characters and in ring personas have their own little origin stories that sometimes might take a little bit to land on that one that really works.
Yeah. So obviously, like I said, I have a background in martial arts. I got judo, jujitsu, all kinds of things, different styles. I've got a little over 13, 14 years of background in martial arts. So I incorporate a lot of that in my style. So one day I was just training, and I'm like, I'm throwing suplexes all over the place. And one of the guys goes, man, he goes, you're like a suplex machine. But he goes, but everybody's the suplex machine. He goes, because like, it's called you the suplex cyclone. He goes, you're from Kansas City, which is like Tornado Alley. And so he goes, yeah, you throw people all over the place like a tornado throws, like debris and everything. So he goes, you should just call yourself the suplex cyclone. And I was just like, that kind of works. So I'm like, okay, let's run with it. So there we go.
No, that's interesting. I mean, I've heard of different people when coming up with in-ring personas, how it kind of comes similar. I think if I remember right, Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he was trying to come up with, moving on from the ringmaster, believe it was his wife that said something about he was drinking a hot beverage and told him to drink it before it gets stone cold, and then boom, there it went.
Yeah. It's always kind of funny how those like little things just kind of just happen. Like they're not usually really planned. So
and you know what? Sometimes those are the ones, like you said, that they just hit, and then you're like, you know what? I love it. And hell, I think Stone Cold right there is probably a good analogy, or I forget how I want to put it, but an example of how Austin 316, nobody knew it was gonna be as the biggest thing in wrestling that it ended up being.
Yeah.
It was kind of one of those that, what, we got this thing lined up, you got this going, and then boom, he said it, and it just
Exactly.
and I am a fan of the suplex maneuvers in general. I mean, there's so many different varieties of it.
Oh
And
yeah.
you have people out there such as yourself, such as Samoa Joe. Who else would I put in here? I mean, classic example, Taz.
Yep.
And Brock Lesnar. That, I mean, with all the with all the varieties of the maneuver, especially those guys in general, they make it look so damn devastating.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I feel like that comes with too, like a lot of those guys, they had like they all had a background as well. And I think that kind of helps. You can even like throw like the Steiners, and the Steiners had some vicious suplexes, like in my opinion. And I feel like they never, people, did acknowledge it, but I feel like they never got enough credit on how nasty their suplexes looked. And
totally.
But yeah, that background definitely helps.
Oh, I mean, good Lord, you look back at, I mean, I brought up Taz. I mean,
yeah.
some of his ones and his matches were like, they're literally falling through the ring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Taz's style was a huge influence on me, because I mean he had that judo style and everything, and I'm built a lot like I'm built that style of, like, I'm stout and I'm stocky, so I'm like, well, use that to my advantage for suplexing. So
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the background you had in martial arts, Taz had judo. I mean, what was it? It was brought up a lot in some of the ECW commentary. I remember Joey Styles always mentioning the rank that Taz got to, and then I mean, now he's passed on things to, I mean, Hook, and look at how he's doing right now.
yeah.
He's one of the hottest things over there in AEW. But getting back to you, I mean, you've had, some different promotions throughout your time. One that, I mean, I guess a lot of this promotion kind of gets swept under the rug anymore because it kind of caught a lot of crap from a lot of people, but it was a kind of interesting concept with the control your narrative.
Yeah.
What was it like actually being a part of that, even if it was for only maybe a short amount of time?
I loved being there, man. Like, and we're still I mean, we're still like we call ourselves still the CYN family, and and CYN's kind of like bled into NWA now. But I mean, there's plans, I know, with things that EC3 is trying to do with that, and we'll see what comes to light and everything. But I loved being there. Like, it was a family atmosphere. Like, we all had each other's backs. It wasn't like some of the other places that I've gone where I feel like you had to have your back up against a wall, which unfortunately pretty common in wrestling. But everybody was out there to help everybody. We had guys like Austin Aries there, which gets a bad rap because of the dirt sheets. The dirt sheets are a joke anyways. Anybody believes the stuff that goes in the dirt sheets, you're getting worked just about as much as you are watching the show. So.
Totally. For everything bad that's gone on with Austin Aries, he has pulled a lot of good with, stuff that, you brought up with, being involved there and helping people along.
Yeah, and Austin Aries, like he took the time to help a lot of people, and he showed up at shows that he wasn't even booked on just to help us, and that says something a lot to me because there's a lot of veterans out there that don't do that, that won't go to that length because it's not about them. um and EC3 is awesome. Like he's another one that they like bring up all this stuff on the dirt sheets that he's like crazy and all this stuff, and I'm like, no, he's actually very intelligent. He's smart in everything he does. He's very helpful in everything he does, and yeah, he's a good dude. Like, and yeah, like I said, it was a great atmosphere. It was a lot of fun to be there. I got to work with some of the guys that have gone back to the WWE, which that was fun too, being able to get that experience from being around them. Honestly, I think CYN would have went further. It's just things happened where like WWE was getting ran by Triple H at the time, and Braun Strowman got the opportunity to go back, and I can't blame him. They offered him a ton of money, offered him a lot of money to go back. So I'm like, you can't really like turn that down. Like, so I mean, I think if that wouldn't have happened, it would have picked up more. You read this crap in the dirt sheets where it's like, oh, when they weren't doing good at shows, they weren't bringing in people. That's bullshit. We were selling out almost every show we had. It was insane, the line and that we would have out the door. But it was great. Like, I loved working there, and it opened up opportunities for me. I got to go to NWA. I got to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have got to do, at least that soon, probably, without being involved with them.
Oh yeah, no, and like you mentioned, every one of the shows that I ended up watching, I mean, it was different, but when it comes to wrestling, different is good, because there's a lot of stuff out there that it's just the same.
Yeah.
And, it's in a lot of people's defense, coming up with original ideas in wrestling are few and far between anymore.
Yeah.
They definitely had that there, so I can definitely give them much respect for that.
Yeah, and you can like look at like the products that are around today, like still like WWE, AEW, NWA, they're all different. Like I really, people try to say, oh, well, they're competition. Yeah, kind of, but I'm like, they're not the same thing. Like, you're not going to turn on AEW for the same thing you're going to turn on WWE or NWA for the same thing for one of the others. Like, AEW is a different product than NWA or WWE or New Japan, MLW, all these, and and you get people out there that are trying to clown on some of the fact that CYM was trying to do something different, and it's just like you're saying, you want different variety, you want to do things different because you don't want to be the same.
Yeah, and we've brought up some of the dirt sheets before, and they really don't help out a lot of that court of public opinion. And I mean, most people know with me, I'm not a fan of most of the dirt sheets. There's really only one that I find even somewhat reliable, but I've even been blocked by one on Twitter. I've been blocked by Meltzer.
Hey, you want to know what? I'm gonna tell you what. That dude gets worked just about as much as like any other fan, because I know stories like that I'm not gonna repeat, but I know stories of some of the things that he's reported that the boys worked him, and they thought it was funny to do, and he thinks he like knows everything, and it's like, dude, you're getting worked by a lot of the boys, and you don't even know it. So
and that part right there is what makes it so funny for me, is when I hear, and while there's people out there like Conrad Thompson uses him referencing a lot, and you know what, in his defense, back in the times of one of my favorite podcast of his is the one he does with Eric Bischoff, the 83 weeks.
Oh yeah.
And references Meltzer a lot there, but back in that time, Meltzer was really one of the only sources of that type of information out there. So
Yeah.
in Conrad Thompson's defense, I can see why that reference would be used a lot. But yeah, no, like I even can tell it's like, dude, you're getting worked. You like people are literally calling you out on your bullshit and you're not even seeing it. It's just funny to me.
Yeah, it cracks me up like with some of those people that report on that stuff, because I'm like, you're no different than TMZ, man. Like, you're a tabloid. Like, you think you know everything that's going on, and you don't, because you have a reliable source, which is, I don't know who the reliable source is, but a lot of times, like I said, it's they're getting worked. So plain and simple. Like, there's a lot of stories that have came out, like, like I said, for instance, Austin Aries, like, it's not my place to repeat, but I'm just like, there's stories that came out about him that have been like not true at all, that have been a complete work, and it was just like stuff that was somebody just made up for the hell of it. Like I said, it's like reading tabloids.
Yeah, no, it definitely is in a lot of aspects. Another thing that I like with you, and you're one of the rising stars here in the Midwest scene, and a lot of people underestimate Midwest professional wrestling. Like,
Oh yeah,
when a lot of people think independent professional wrestling, it's either West Coast, East Coast, maybe down in Florida. I mean, if you want Midwest, they're probably thinking Chicago. And I mean, nothing against Chicago, albeit they seem to have their heads up AEW's ass with the amount of shows they get there. But that's a whole nother story. But, a lot of people underestimate the amount of talent that the Midwest scene actually has.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like I always talk about like some of the places, like for instance, Oklahoma. Like, Oklahoma is, how's this a nice way to say this? There is some bad wrestling down in Oklahoma, but there's a lot of like diamonds in the rough too that are down there that are killing it, that are just not, discovered. And at least right now. And same thing with Missouri and Kansas and Iowa, all these places that are Midwest, just like you're saying. Like, there's guys that are just not, that are there, they're just haven't just gotten the opportunity to get discovered yet. I mean, sometimes that's kind of their own fault. They're not advertising or going out and traveling as much as they need to or should be. But I mean, at the same time, it is there. Like you said, it's very underrated. I think it's just more of the fact that wrestling has gotten so big on the coastal areas that it's everybody, just looks at those areas all the time. So, and same thing with Texas. Texas is like, Texas is kind of like the coastal areas. Like, it's big for wrestling down there. So.
Oh yeah, no, and I've been lucky enough to talk with a handful. I mean, Texas, for example, handful of talent down there. I know there are those that are getting their names out there, but you definitely see them as the ones that, like, oh damn, they're getting the opportunities when AEW comes to town. They're the ones getting out there when WWE is coming to town and they need the extra work and stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just by being in the right place at the right time too, man. Like, I've been wrestling for, I want to say, up on 12, 13 years now, and it's just one of those things that, like, I never was in the right place at the right time for the longest time. And And part of it was too, I wasn't traveling as much as I needed to. But I mean, sometimes, like I said, it's just being where you need to be. Like, I showed up at a certain event for CYN and got an opportunity, and same thing with some of the other things that like I've been able to do. And like I said, it's just sometimes it's just knowing people too,
Yeah, no,
you point you in the right direction. So yeah. So
that definitely adds in there. And a funny story that I have with one of my past guests, when XPW was relaunching and they had their first King of the Deathmatch tournament, I had a guy that I knew from back when I first got started watching independent wrestling. It was down in San Diego, California, when I was stationed down there.
mhm.
And there was this one big guy, like monster dude. And I just remember seeing him in one show performing multiple standing moonsaults. And I'm like, holy shit. And then I found out he was still in the business when I got the podcast going. I'm like, I have to have him. And then he told me the story about that King of the Deathmatch show. He wasn't originally on it. He just happened to be there, and they had somebody had to not show up or something.
Yeah.
And they were looking for a replacement, and somebody points at him, and then boom, before you know it, he's on the damn show.
Yep. Yep. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes, like, if you just take the time to go out and, help maybe with the setup of the ring or tear it down, you never know. You might get an opportunity to just, get, thrown in the ring and get a chance in that spotlight. So,
Oh, definitely, definitely. And that, I mean, they always say to whenever you're traveling for wrestling to always have your bag ready. So,
yep.
I mean, now this episode will come out after this particular show that I wanted to bring up. But, one of the emerging kind of fan fest wrestling shows is Central Empire Wrestling's Bridge City Slam.
Oh, yeah.
And I've actually had Austin Bayless on before, and we were gonna have him on again, but due to things that he had going on, we weren't able to do it. Nothing against him there. But it is definitely, I mean, Central Empire Wrestling, they're doing big things out in that portion of Iowa. And then they're bringing in this fan fest, this show that is proving to be a bit of a destination event in all of wrestling. Like, he was telling me the time I had him on how, like, people from all over the country are coming in just for this. And I mean, they're bringing in some big names. I mean, this year alone,
Yeah.
Earl Hebner, Kurt Angle. I mean, they've had Carlito, they've had Mr. Kennedy, all sorts of people.
Yeah. 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 And Austin's been doing awesome stuff with that. That's Bridge City Slam is kind of like CEW's WrestleMania. So
That is true.
It's a big show every year, and people from all over come on into it. It's kind of crazy because I've worked, man, I think I've worked every single one.
I'm one to say you probably have. I mean, I know there's been a handful, and I've seen you on the majority of them.
Yeah, this year will be 5, so I'm pretty sure I have. I'm trying to think. My memory's so bad anymore. I've been doing wrestling for so long. I've been hitting the head too many damn times. So, but pretty sure like I've been on every single one since the first one, and they've just gradually gotten bigger and bigger. And you bring up Carlito and Mr. Kennedy. I had the opportunity to face both of those guys. Carlito was last year, and then the year before that, I think, was when I faced Mr. Kennedy. But yeah, like I said, though, it's been every year it's just gradually gotten bigger, and I think this one's just going to be even more bigger this year. And I'll be on it this year. I'm actually in a 6-man tag. It should be a lot of fun. We got Rory Fox coming back. Rory, If people aren't familiar with Rory has like the used to be an MTV. He was on the MTV reality show. He actually was the infamous pants explosion during a match with Zack Ryder on WWE. His tights tore open. so so Rory's got some history.
Yeah.
Rory's pretty just decently known, and I love Rory's a good dude. But and then of course they got Bob Orton on their team, and then Storm Thomas. Storm Thomas has been pretty known on the East Coast and Iowa, and a guy that I've had a couple matches with, and I was hoping he retired, and I was hoping he'd come back to get into it because me and him I've been wanting to do some more stuff with him. But it should be a lot of fun. But yeah, that's coming up this Saturday, and it should be a pretty big show.
Oh yeah, no, that's going to be amazing. I was kind of bummed out a little bit last year when I wasn't able to go because I believe Farouk was there that year. I'm like, oh damn it! I wanted to. He's one wrestler I haven't met yet that I'm like, damn it, I really want to meet that guy.
There's actually a con coming up that I'm going to be wrestling at the end of the month, and he's actually one of the people that's going to be there, which is going to be another big one. The Brutus the Barber Beefcake, Ron Simmons. There was a ton of legend wrestlers that were coming in for it.
Nice.
But it's for Buzzsaw Championship Wrestling down in Oklahoma City. But it should be another big one. I'm coming down there with my tag team partner, Leo Fox, who is another Control Your Narrative guy out of Oklahoma. So it should be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, no, that would be awesome. I know. I mean, I'm a big fan of tag team wrestling in particular. So whenever I hear about a tag team that I might not have seen so much of, it's like, ooh, it definitely catches my attention. And I mean, I've been lucky enough to have some damn dog trying to drink out of the sink again. But hey, this is the magic of my show. Sometimes random shit just ends up happening. But I've been lucky enough to have on this, and these guys were actually my first ever episode over Zoom. The SATs, the Spanish announce team. That, like, I remember they liked a tweet of mine on somebody that was a favorite of mine when I was out in California, and then it was right around the time of those matches they were having with. Oops, crap! See, random shit. There we go. But it was right around the time of those matches they were having with the Briscoes and the Hardys, and I'm like, I was just seeing those when they liked that tweet. I'm like, holy crap, that's those guys. And I reached down, I'm like, this might be a long shot, but here, let's see if it sticks. And then boom, here I am now.
Yeah. I of course, I'm doing the tag team now too. And like, we just that was something that was supposed to start last year. But I got hurt. I actually tore my tendon in my right arm. That happened in September, and I was out. I had to have surgery, and I was out. So, but that was actually supposed to happen, like I said, with my partner Leo Fox, Wrestlers of Mass Destruction. So we were supposed to start it last year, but got held up. So now we're just getting our feet down on the ground and running with it now. And we got some stuff lined up, so hopefully it'll be taken off a lot more towards the end of the year, and to end of the summer, end of the year, and kind of go from there. But I'm huge on tag team wrestling too. I love tag team wrestling. I feel like it's an art that's not as big as it used to be. It's like it was like definitely 80s and 90s, and I hate the fact that like tag team wrestling is just not taken as seriously. It used to be like tag team wrestling could main event a show, and like it's not like that anymore. So that's like it's kind of like a goal of me and Leo. We're like, maybe we can help like main event like tag team wrestling again. And so yeah.
That would be epic. And the image I get of you guys goes along. I mean, we brought up Farouk. I mean, tag teams, big bruising tag teams like the APA, like the Road Warriors. These guys that just you look at them and you're like, God damn, they look like they could just knock that other guy's head off.
Yeah, that was kind of something that we were like, well, we're the brawler, like just ass kicker type wrestlers. Let's do this tag team. And what's kind of funny is that we actually got thrown together as a tag team at a show, and we were like, this works. It clicks. Like, and me and Leo have known each other for a while. And I was like, well, we already kind of have some chemistry. Let's like build on that and like
Yeah.
let's take it a little further. And I think we got something here. So, and where we've gone with it so far, people have loved it and they eat it up. So I think it'll really, once we get our feet on the ground and running with it a little bit more, it'll really take off.
I'm looking forward to it. Now, I have two categories I kind of round stuff off here with. First one's a bit of a name game, and I try to, as much as possible, theme this round to the guests, where like you've either shared the ring or at least shared a locker room with these guys at some point.
Gotcha.
And you know what? Sometimes I try to catch, some big names, but a couple of these guys, big names, and the others are, they're still big names, but maybe just haven't been seen on that big level yet.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a crime if you ask me. But anyways, enough of that ramble. We'll get into it. I name off the people. You give me the first thought that pops into your head.
Gotcha.
First one. This guy, he's becoming a bit of a belt collector right now. Buns of Steel, Jay Fowler.
Jay Fowler had my first Bridge City Slam match. Funny thing is I got hurt during that match. I actually was in the middle of the match. Well, I was already sore before, but in the middle of the match, my hip popped, and come to find out, I tore part of my tendon in my hip. But yeah, so that's my story probably with Fowler. But yeah, Fowler's awesome. Like he's a hell of a high flyer, and he's definitely put in the work to build his physique and everything up.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, like I kind of mentioned, he's becoming a bit of a belt collector right now. I'm trying to remember, he's up to at least, if I remember right, I'm going to say at least 3.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy crap. I mean, I remember when he was performing under a mask, and I'm like, I was one of the few people that he actually, I think it was before a show, actually took off the mask in front of him. Like, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, before that point, I hadn't seen him without it.
Yeah.
And now it's almost weird thinking back to a point where, before what he's doing now, and thinking like, holy crap, yeah, you did have a mask at one point, didn't you?
Yeah.
Next up, another first 2 guys, actually 2 good friends of mine. One guy, I was actually there live this last Saturday when he won a set of tag team titles, the Copperhead Duke Cornell.
So me and Duke have had quite a few matches in the past. Like we've wrestled at Wrestling for a Cause. We've wrestled at American Wrestling Revolution out in Kansas. Yeah, we've worked a lot, and it's always been a fun match every time we've had matches. So yeah.
No, definitely. And those first 2 definitely ones that I would say I'm surprised that they haven't been signed somewhere big yet. Definitely. Next up, one of the guys that you said you somewhat recently had a match with at one of the past Bridge City Slams, Carlito.
Oh, Carlito's awesome. I love Carlito. One of the coolest dudes ever. Like, like when he plays the gimmick of like, now that's cool. Carlito's cool. Like
Oh,
yeah, uh, really fun match we had last year. But yeah, great guy, pretty chill. Like I mean, I can't really say like anything bad about him. Really good guy.
oh yeah, no, the couple of times that I've met him, nothing but pleasant interactions each time.
Yeah.
Next up, a guy I haven't met but wouldn't mind it. Another guy that you've faced off with at a Bridge City Slam, Mr. Kennedy.
Also another.
Kennedy. I felt like I had to do that little Kennedy. I had to do that part.
Also another really good guy. He's one really easy to work with. We were actually, when we had that match, we were working through an injury for him. He wasn't feeling too great and he was having some stuff going on. But we got through it and the match went over really well, and super good guy, and offered, if I ever wanted to come up to Minnesota and like, stay for a weekend and train at the school and learn some stuff, he said I could come up anytime I wanted. And but yeah, another good guy.
Sweet. I've been curious because especially more as of late, the last year or so, you don't really hear as much about him now. But
Yeah, I think he just kind of focuses more on his school here lately anymore. Like, I think he's just kind of at that point, like he's, from what I see, because I'm friends with him on Facebook, and like what I see is like he's just about his family and about school mostly. And he just, I mean, I'm just assuming he probably just is focusing on that stuff and
hey,
not much as bookings as much.
nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Next up, I have a bit of random questions. There's only a couple that I keep in. I never really know on the other ones until I'm literally putting my notes together. But I ask the question, you give me the first answer that pops into your head. First one, craziest in-match moment for you?
Uh, let's see. Craziest in match moments. Trying to think off the top of my head. Maybe just this recent one when I tore my tendon in my arm, honestly.
That would be a crazy moment for sure.
I mean, it was just it was very unexpected because it was literally this, the guy jumped off the top rope and I went to go catch him like I've done in the past multiple times. Nothing weird, nothing awkward. And all of a sudden my arm just goes pop. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. So
I,
put him
I
down, and then I picked him back up, slammed him again. And I'm like, nope, I'm done.
yeah, I've seen something kind of similar before. Back, another one of those, going off the top rope. I believe it was like a crossbody, and the guy caught him a little too high. So when they rolled back, it like wrenched his neck wrong, and they literally had to cart him out to an ambulance.
See, luckily it wasn't anything weird like that for me. It was just like, I think it's just, honestly, it was wear and tear. Like, unfortunately, being a wrestler, eventually you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get an injury, and it's just gonna happen. So
Yeah.
I chalk it up. It was just wear and tear, and it was just that time for it to happen.
No, and you know what? That's sort of the thing that happens. And I mean, not just professional wrestling, although, the damage that you guys take, I don't like. I always tell people when they talk about all that fake stuff is like, I prefer the term predetermined, because like, while the outcomes might be predetermined, the damage that you guys take getting to that outcome more often than not can't be faked. I mean, even the seasoned trained professionals have those moments where the wear and tear happens, and then there you go.
Yep. Yeah, and there was a little study I read about a while back that I always tell people when they're like, "Oh, it's fake," and I'm like, "Well, there was a study with a doctor that said that every time that a wrestler takes a bump, it's like equivalent to being in a car wreck at 20-25 miles per hour, uh, so impacting the brain." So I'm like, "Well, it's not as fake as you think it is it?"
Yeah, no, and you know what? I think I heard about that. little part there before. And yeah, I mean, as somebody that's been in a bit of a wreck, I'm like, yeah, damn, yeah, no, 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 no. Next one being known as the Suplex Cyclone. Other than yourself, who's somebody that you think has the best suplex?
Um, Going today or just past or
Oh, how about one going today and then kind of an all timer?
Jeff Cobb, hands down, is
Mm.
awesome at suplexes. Like, uh, if I could have a suplex off with anybody, it'd be Jeff Cobb. Um, I'd probably runner up just because just how brutal they look is Brock Lesnar. His Germans are
Mm.
just nasty, and his overhead belly to bellies. Um, as far as all time, I mean, I got to go with like either Taz or or the Steiners.
Mm.
Like I said, they've had some of the best suplexes. And another runner up for that would be somebody that doesn't get enough credit is Perry Saturn. Perry Saturn suplexes
Ooh.
were amazing.
Mm. You know what? I kind of almost forgot about him. Jeff Cobb. I actually got the opportunity to meet him down at that Warrior Wrestling show in St. Louis. I actually have a signed wrestling figure of his downstairs. But that match that he had that night was actually against Jonah, going back now by Bronson Reed. And holy crap, you talked about some monster looking suplexes. That match right there. Holy shit. Next up, favorite match for you as a fan? Like, what's one that you look back on that you're like, that right there?
Probably one that stands out that surprises a lot of people is because there was hardly anything done in it as far as move wise is Hollywood Hogan and The Rock.
You know, that one's one that people seem to mention quite often as a pretty great one.
Yeah, and it was one, I think reason why I always mention that as one of them as one of my top favorites is because they told a story in that, and which is something I feel like is not common as much anymore. And they had these people invested and on their feet. And that, yeah, I know it was Hulk Hogan and The Rock, but
Yeah.
they had them so hooked and so invested that they didn't have to do anything.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it was just a few shoves, a few body slams, and that was it. And
Yeah.
people were just so
Mhm.
intrigued, and it's because of the story. They told a great story,
Oh,
and so that's definitely would be a main one that I would pick.
oh, totally. I can completely agree. The crowd reaction alone in that match was something special.
Yeah.
I know for me, looking back on some of the matches I've been to, one of my favorites, and it was just one of my personal favorites from when I was stationed in San Diego, was actually a triple threat between Scorpio Sky, TJP, and the New Age Punisher B-Boy. And it was like those guys just went hard, and it was like, oh damn. But like as far as like that huge stage, oh boy. I mean, me being the big Stone Cold fan I am, either one of his matches with that classic submission match with Bret Hart,
Mhm.
where passed out with all that blood all over his face, and
Yeah.
then that match with Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania where he won the title and Mike Tyson as referee. I'm like, I don't know. Me being the big Stone Cold fan I am, like I said, that probably why I end up choosing those two. But that Hollywood Hogan Rock match definitely up there, just on crowd reaction alone for sure.
Now, if we go physicality, I think that'd probably be my next match. Would probably be Taz and Bam Bam Bigelow from ECW. Like that match was just brutal.
Nope, that yes. Although, weird question on that one. Which one? Are we going the one where they fell through the ring? Or are we
That one.
going the one where they fell through that entrance ramp.
The one where they fell through the ring, where it has where they suplexed him over the barricade. Yeah, that one was great. That match was awesome.
I mean, either one of them really, but yes, that one in particular. Yeah, I think he had the he had the transmission on, and then Bam Bam was all stumbling and then fell through. Oh yeah,
Bam Bam drags him out, pins him. Like it was awesome. It was a good match.
Oh yeah, no, definitely one that I go back to every so often for sure. Last but not least, best advice for anybody wanting to get into wrestling.
Let's see. Probably best advice I can give is 1, get out and travel. 2, never stop learning. Because there's so much in wrestling you can learn. Honestly, that's probably my biggest thing that I tell people. Like, it's no matter how big or how well known you get, there's always something you can learn from somebody. And so keep learning, keep traveling, and keep trying to get your name out there the best you can.
For sure. The professional wrestling is one of those ever evolving processes where you can always learn something from somebody. And the way I like to talk with people about it is, especially when you're developing the in-ring persona, it's like taking something from everybody, whatever works for you with everybody, and mold it into your own little thing, and then boom, you're good.
Yep, exactly.
And there's always those seminars. I'm constantly seeing seminars out there with some big names out there that are starting to get out there and doing them.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, there's some of the places like I train, to keep my ring rust and stuff off. I train out here in Kansas, on the Kansas City, Kansas side, for Trailblazers training facility, Trailblazer Championship Wrestling. But they have a lot of new students and stuff come through, and like I always tell them, any seminars that pop up, camps, anything, go and take advantage of those, because you can learn a lot. Like I've taken something from every seminar and every camp that I've ever done, and it's just, if you get that opportunity, take them. So
for sure. Well, before we go, where can people find you social media wise, so if they don't already have their eyes on you, they can go ahead and get them there?
Well, I've got my Facebook pages. I've got my personal page, which I'm kind of running out of room on. So, people can at least follow the page, but it's just under Curt Gannon. And then I've got an actual like page on Facebook. Same thing, Curt Gannon, and Instagram, CG Suplex Cyclone. I've got a TikTok that I put some cool clips on every now and then under, again, Curt Gannon. And then Twitter is I try to keep up on Twitter. It's not my favorite. It's probably my least favorite of my social medias, but I do have a Twitter. It's at Suplex the World.
All right. Well, we'll have that info all in the description. But that is about all I have for tonight. I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me tonight, and best of luck out there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, man.
It was a pleasure.